You'll take care of him, right? We're flying out in 2 hours. That was the entire message. No happy holidays. No explanation. Just one cold, cruel text from my husband, Logan, as I pulled into his family's driveway with a trunk full of groceries and a heart full of plans. Hi, my name's Emily. I'm 34. I've been married to Logan Peterson for almost 6 years. And this Thanksgiving, I found out just how disposable I really was. The house was silent when I arrived. No laughter, no football game echoing from the living room, no smells of stuffing or turkey. Just stillness and the bitter chill of November seeping through old windows. I pushed the door open, balancing a tray of deviled eggs and a pie I'd made from scratch. The lights were off. No one answered when I called out. But then I saw him. Glenn, Logan's stepfather. Sitting stiffly on the couch, coat still on, like he'd been left there and forgotten. His eyes, cloudy but alert, locked on mine. They're gone, he said simply. Left yesterday morning. He didn't sound surprised. Just tired. I stood there, confused, clutching a pie dish I suddenly hated. Gone where? Florida, beach house, he replied. Your husband said you'd handle the rest. I pulled out my phone, my fingers numb. Logan's message had come in just 10 minutes before I arrived. You'll take care of him, right? We're flying out in 2 hours. Mom needs the break. Should be back by Tuesday. Love you. I stared at it like it was written in another language. Tuesday? That was 5 days from now. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. Again. And again. My hands started shaking. They left you here? I asked Glenn, barely recognizing my own voice. He nodded. Didn't even stock the fridge. I opened the refrigerator. A bottle of expired milk, half a jar of olives. That's it. I had brought yams, cranberries, and ingredients for my grandmother's apple pie. No real food. No plan to cook for just 2 people. Especially not someone who looked like he hadn't eaten a real meal in days. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, They just left you like this? Glenn's mouth curled into a bitter half-smile. They've been leaving me for years. This time they figured you could play nurse. I collapsed into the nearest chair. The cold from the tile seeped through my jeans. My brain refused to catch up with what was happening. I checked our bank account out of instinct. Logan and I had been saving for a house. Over $12,000 was supposed to be in there. Balance. $53.87. A large transfer, exactly $11,960, was marked just 2 days ago. Labeled, Peterson Family Travel Booking. My stomach dropped. This wasn't an accident. This was a setup. Glenn, I said slowly, did Logan say anything else before they left? He leaned back on the couch and looked at me for a long time, eyes unreadable. He said, and I quote, Emily'll be fine. She always is. Too soft to say no, too proud to walk away. My throat burned. I had taken time off work. I had called his mother to confirm the menu. I had bought gifts. I had paid for half the groceries. And now I was here, babysitting an elderly man I barely knew, abandoned like garbage, while my husband toasted cocktails on a beach with the money we'd worked hard to save. But the worst part? Glenn, this man everyone pretended was senile, looked at me with something that wasn't pity. It was recognition, maybe even understanding. You can cry later, he said quietly. Right now, you and I have work to do. I blinked. Work? He leaned forward, his voice steady. You want to know how deep this rabbit hole goes? I nodded, confused, angry, and heartbroken all at once. Then go unlock the file cabinet in the office, he said. Bottom drawer. It's time someone else finally saw what they've been doing behind closed doors. I stood in the dim hallway of Logan's childhood home, staring at the office door like it might bite. The smell of dust and something vaguely medicinal clung to the walls. I hadn't been in that room once in all our 6 years of marriage. Logan always said it was Dad's space, meaning Glenn's, back when he still mattered. Now Glenn was sitting in the living room in a coat no one had helped him take off, and I was about to open a drawer he probably hadn't opened in years. My fingers shook as I unlocked the bottom cabinet and slid it open. Inside were folders, old, yellowed, some with rubber bands wrapped so tightly they'd left grooves in the paper. I pulled them out slowly and sat on the floor. The first one was labeled, Logan, 2017, Education Fund Transfer. What the hell? I flipped it open and there it was. $25,000 wired from Glenn's personal savings to an account under Logan's name. A note from the bank was stapled to the corner. For tuition reimbursement, private arrangement, no repayment required. But Logan didn't go back to school in 2017. He told me we couldn't afford it. That's why I took on 2 part-time gigs to help pay down his car loan. I opened another folder. This one held Medicare paperwork, denials, appeals, prescriptions for Glenn's medications that had been rejected because someone had forgotten to enroll him in supplemental insurance. Another envelope, credit card statements in Glenn's name, but with purchases like Sephora, Apple Watch, and concert tickets. I recognized the names on the shipping labels. Logan's sister, his mom. Every page felt like a slap. Every date, every dollar, a betrayal. How long has this been going on? I asked when I came back into the living room. Glenn hadn't moved. He looked tired but resolute. Since before you showed up? He said simply. But I didn't know the full extent until a year ago. Thought it was just small stuff. Then my heat got shut off last winter, and I realized something wasn't right. My throat tightened. They let your heat get turned off? He nodded. I used to be a banker, you know. Wasn't always like this. I started documenting things. He tapped his head. Still sharp in here. They didn't count on that. I sat down across from him, folder clutched in my lap. You know they emptied our savings? Glenn met my eyes. Logan never had a long game. He was always about the quick fix. You're just his latest convenience. The words hurt more because they felt true. I'd built my life around this man, this family. I gave up my studio, moved across state lines, spent every holiday doing things their way. Every compromise I'd made, I thought it was for us. But us was just me carrying him, and him cashing in behind my back. I thought about the way Logan smiled when he lied, that soft voice, the way he called me M when he needed something, and how lately, that name hadn't come up at all. I looked back at Glenn. Why are you showing me this? Because I've been waiting for someone in this damn house to do the right thing, he said. And because I'm dying. The words hit me like ice water. What? He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. One of those official-looking documents you never want to see your name on. Stage 4 liver cancer. 6 months, maybe less. I couldn't speak. I didn't tell them, he added. Figured they'd book another vacation to celebrate. The rage rose in me so fast I thought I'd choke on it. I wasn't just left to babysit. I was the only one they trusted wouldn't notice he was dying. That's when I heard the ping. A message from Logan popped up on my phone. How's the old man? Hope he's not being too much trouble. We're hitting the spa later. Hannah says hi. Hannah, his co-worker, the same woman who'd been tagging him in beach photos with captions like "number my person." I showed Glenn the phone. He didn't even flinch. She's been around longer than you think. I stared down at that screen, and something inside me finally snapped. I wasn't going to cry. Not this time. Instead, I opened my laptop, plugged in the scanner, and said the words that would change everything. Let's start documenting. All of it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid. That feeling had already burned itself out hours ago. What I felt now was something colder, something sharper. The kind of clarity that comes after you've been wrung out and left to dry. Logan had taken our money, our plans, my dignity, and he'd handed me a dying man and called it a favor. Well, fine. I could work with that. By sunrise, Glenn was already in the kitchen, wearing a thick cardigan and brewing instant coffee like it was any other morning. He looked at me over the rim of his mug and said one word. "Ready?" I nodded. No hesitation. Let's ruin their little vacation. We started by organizing the folders. Glenn had already been keeping records, but they were scattered. Bank statements, notes scribbled in margins, pill bottles with refill dates that didn't match the labels. I brought in my scanner and laptop from the car, set up shop right at the dining table, and created a digital trail that even a blind lawyer could follow. It didn't take long before the picture got clearer. And uglier. There were months of heating bills unpaid while Glenn's Medicare reimbursements were mysteriously delayed. Prescription records showing medications logged but not purchased. Photos of bruises from falls, one in the backyard that no one had documented except the neighbor who helped him up. Even the house's title had been quietly transferred to a Peterson family trust, managed by Logan's mother. How the hell did they get away with all this? I muttered, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Glenn smiled without humor. People see what they want to see, especially when the person being mistreated is old and quiet. By noon, I'd put together a timeline. By 2 p.m., I had matching visual evidence. By 4, we were crafting messages. We staged Glenn's bedroom to look as bleak as possible. Pill bottles on the nightstand, a cold lunch tray left untouched. I took photos with moody lighting and sent them to Logan's sister, April, who had at least bothered to text twice since they left. "Rough day," I wrote. "Pain management not working. Hoping he makes it through the weekend." The response came almost immediately. "Oh no, should I tell Mom? She just booked a dolphin swim with Logan and Hannah." Hannah, again. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. The seed was planted. We spent the evening building a file named Peterson Neglect Master Evidence. It had everything. Voice memos Glenn recorded after missed appointments. A spreadsheet of disappearing funds. Photos of unopened medical supplies. And one very chilling security cam screenshot from Glenn's front porch camera. Logan, last week, slipping a sealed envelope into the mailbox, labeled "Do not open until Monday." "What's that?" I asked. Glenn's face darkened. He didn't know I installed that camera. He thought he was being clever. I went outside, retrieved the envelope from where it had been wedged behind the loose brick under the mailbox. Logan must have told someone to hide it. Just in case. It was still there. Inside was a printed power of attorney form. Signed, dated, notarized, giving Logan full control of Glenn's medical and financial decisions starting Monday. I stared at the paper, heart thudding. They knew. They planned this. They thought you'd die while they were away and no one would question it. Glenn didn't look surprised, just tired. But then, as I placed the envelope back on the table, something fell out. A receipt from a local pharmacy, dated yesterday. For a prescription Glenn never received. My skin went cold. "They're still filling meds, even though you're not using them." He nodded. "They've been doing it for months." We stared at each other for a long time. The next step wasn't a question anymore. It was a countdown. And then, just as I was about to shut down the laptop, I noticed a folder I hadn't seen before, tucked inside the original bank documents. No label. I opened it. Inside was a manila envelope. Thick, heavy, with a sticky note. "Emily, if you're reading this, you need to know who Logan really is." My fingers trembled as I pulled out the contents. At the top of the stack, a copy of a restraining order, filed 7 years ago. Name of the protected party, Ava Jensen. Reason, domestic financial coercion and manipulation, filed in Colorado. Filed 2 months before Logan and I met. I used to think rock bottom was finding out your husband drained your savings and dumped you with his dying stepfather over Thanksgiving. Turns out, that was just the opening act. The real show started after I found that restraining order. Ava Jensen's name still burned into my mind like a brand I never asked for. She wasn't just some past mistake. She was a warning I'd ignored because I didn't even know it existed. I couldn't stop shaking that night. not from fear anymore. Anger had taken its place. Slow, deliberate, white-hot rage. I wasn't going to be next in a pattern of women Logan used and discarded. I'd already been her. But now I knew. Now I had names, dates, proof. I had power. The next morning, I called the number on the court document. I didn't know what I'd say if she picked up. But after 2 rings, a tired voice answered. "This is Ava." I introduced myself. I expected her to hang up. Instead, there was a long silence. Then a quiet, bitter laugh. "He's still doing it, huh?" 30 minutes later, we were on a Zoom call. She looked older than me by maybe 5 years, but it was her eyes that caught me. Sharp, exhausted, but not broken. She told me everything. How Logan had swept in after her divorce, promising partnership and stability. How he convinced her to put her inheritance into a joint venture. How he drained it and ghosted her. How she only got out after catching him opening a credit card in her name. It was like listening to a recording of my own life. "I went to court," she said. "But his mom helped him cover it up. Money talks. So does family loyalty. He called me unstable. Said I was making it all up. I didn't even get my own dog back. That did it. I actually cried for the first time since this all started. By the time we hung up, Ava had agreed to send me her files. Not copies, originals. She wanted this to end just as badly as I did. Glenn, who'd been listening from the hallway, looked at me differently after that call. Like he didn't just see a scared girl anymore. He saw someone rising. "You're doing what I couldn't," he said. "They took my voice. You're getting it back." That day, we called Patricia, Glenn's attorney, and told her it was time. Within 24 hours, she arrived with 2 witnesses and a notary. Glenn, frail but lucid, signed a new will. It revoked the one Logan's mom had helped draft years ago. Instead, it named me as executor, primary beneficiary, and caretaker of the legacy Glenn had worked his whole life to build. Then Patricia handed me a plain manila envelope. "This is for you," she said. "From Glenn. I haven't read it." I opened it after she left. Inside was a signed transfer of property. Not just this house. 4 other rental properties under Glenn's name. Worth nearly $1.2 million. Hidden for years under LLCs, so Elaine and Logan couldn't touch them. He'd been waiting for someone to trust. And he chose me. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came when I checked the mailbox after lunch. An envelope with no return address, no stamp, just my name in sharp block letters. EMILY. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. No signature. Just one line written in slanted cursive. "Logan isn't who he says he is. His real name is James Colton. He changed it in 2015 to avoid prosecution in Denver. Search the name. You'll see why." My legs buckled. I dropped everything and ran to my laptop. Hands trembling, I typed it in. And there it was. James Raymond Colton, charged in 2015 with felony wire fraud, identity theft, and elder exploitation. Case dismissed due to insufficient evidence. Defendant disappeared. Never resurfaced. Last known location, Oregon. My husband, my Logan, was a man who'd faked his entire life. I didn't sleep the night I found out Logan was never Logan. James Colton. A man with a sealed past and a trail of women, lawsuits, and lies so thick it made me nauseous. All this time, I'd been married to someone who'd reinvented himself just enough to escape consequences. Until now. The moment that name showed up on a background check, I knew I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. I was fighting for every person he had ever stepped on to get ahead. And Glenn, he gave me the match. All I had to do was strike. The Sunday they came home from their family emergency cruise was colder than usual, even for Oregon. I'd opened every window in the house that morning, let the wind cut through the rooms like a warning. I wore black. Not for grief, but for clarity. For the final goodbye. Elaine burst through the front door first, her designer heels clicking across the floor. Logan followed, tan from the beach, grinning like a man walking into his inheritance. except what he walked into was silence, and a living room full of truth. I was sitting at the dining table, stacks of documents neatly arranged, copies of Glenn's will, photos, security footage, scanned evidence, and a laptop open to the Zoom call waiting for Patricia, Glenn's attorney. "What is this?" Logan said, the smile faltering. Elaine looked around, sniffed the air like something was rotting. "Where's Glenn?" I looked up at her, meeting her eyes dead on. "He died 3 days ago, peacefully, in my arms. You missed it." Elaine's lips parted like she was about to say something, but I stood before she could. "And before you ask, yes, the funeral's already done. He didn't want you there." Patricia's face lit up on the laptop screen. "Perfect timing," she said. "Shall we begin?" The next 30 minutes unraveled their entire fantasy. Glenn had rewritten everything: his will, his trust, his medical power of attorney, all notarized, witnessed, legally sealed. Logan and Elaine had been cut out entirely, not just disinherited, but cited for willful neglect and financial exploitation. Patricia explained calmly that the estate, including 4 hidden properties and investments totaling over $1.2 million, now belonged to me as the named executor and beneficiary. Elaine turned pale. Logan tried to interrupt, sputtering about manipulation and mental instability. That's when I handed him the folder. Inside, a printed dossier. Ava's testimony, court transcripts, fraud records, the restraining order, the alias. "James Colton," I said, voice steady. "That's your real name, isn't it?" Silence. "Glenn knew," I continued. "He found out last year, right before he made me the executor. He never said a word. Just started moving everything where you'd never reach it." Elaine stumbled back a step. "You lied to me?" She snapped at him. "I didn't." She's twisting it. "This isn't." "You faked your name. You faked your marriage. You faked your whole damn life," I snapped. "And now you don't even own the shoes you're standing in." Then came the final blow. Patricia explained that due to Logan's known history and new evidence submitted, including Ava's sworn affidavit, the county DA had reopened his case for elder exploitation and identity fraud. Logan's hands started shaking. Elaine slumped into the nearest chair, breath short and face blotchy red. I turned to both of them. "Glenn gave you everything, and you left him to die in a cold house with expired soup and unpaid bills." I stepped toward Logan, close enough for him to smell the lavender oil I'd put on that morning, Glenn's favorite scent. "You used me, lied to me, but you made one mistake," I said. "You left me standing." 2 months later, Logan, James, was arrested. He's still awaiting trial. Elaine lost access to every bank account Glenn once shared with her. The properties were sold, the proceeds split between elder abuse charities and a community fund Glenn wanted set up for seniors with no family. And me? I started over. Rented a small studio back in Portland. Quiet. Peaceful. I hung Glenn's old banker's plaque by the front door. It reads, "Do the right thing, even when no one's watching." Looking back, I think the worst part wasn't being used. It was realizing how long I'd been willing to stay small for someone else to feel big. But the day I said goodbye to Glenn, something changed. I stopped surviving. I started choosing myself. If any part of this felt familiar, if someone ever made you feel invisible, please share your story in the comments. I promise you're not alone. And if you're still healing, still clawing your way back like I was, stick around. Sometimes all it takes is one truth to flip the whole board. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next story.